My topic is racism in education. I chose as much because I've been presented with racism in my education since my childhood, learning of how, because of one's skin color, countless disadvantages can take over one's life. My fault line thus is Los Angeles County. It's a county with people from all walks of life, making it the perfect representation of California. My general stakeholders will be university admissions officers, professors in higher education, and students who are people of color. For within my fault line of Los Angeles, I chose the USC Admissions office, as it is a university within Los Angeles County that has taken the topic of racism in education. It is a private university in the middle of an area of LA County that is known to be marginalized. As someone who has been to USC myself, I've seen the difference between what is on campus and that is outside of campus. The students see the unfairness, and so do the staff. However, the U.S. Department of Education refuses to see what is right in front of them, finding that striving for equity is equivalent to introducing bias into admissions processes. As a university admissions office in Los Angeles County, which has stake in the racial and educational climate of its county, USC Admissions Office's holistic view of admissions and acknowledgement of racial bias should urge the Secretary of Education to reconsider her stance on affirmative action or policies that increase representation and consideration of marginalized groups in university admissions. This is the myth of DEI. My first resource is Studying and Challenging Racism in Higher Education, Naming Bad Faith to Understand the Logic of Racism by Antar A. Tijavakunda. It examines how higher education can be tainted through self-gratifying evidence interpretation, and the USC Admissions Office takes measures to ensure their students are not taught by those speaking with bad faith, and also to monitor which students promote racist rhetoric. The current Secretary of Education has made multiple racist claims, such as when her words were echoed through President Trump as he, quote-unquote, ended racial indoctrination in K-12 schooling in a January 2026 bill by eliminating anti-American ideas in curriculum, such as the acknowledgement of racial bias. Children learning about the history of America, including its dirtier history, does not promote further racial discrimination, as even children can fathom the idea of not repeating what their ancestors did to their peers' ancestors. If a top university like USC takes the time to guarantee each student does not hold racial bias or belief in the superiority of one race over another, the Secretary of Education should understand, similarly, that her understanding of diversity and inclusion is flawed. Inclusion does not assume replacing one race for another, simply one culture being granted the same privileges as the others, essentially, equity. My second resource, Educators Confront the Science of Racism by Thomas D. Fallis, shows that theory can be misinterpreted and used to fit certain bigoted agendas, such as eugenics. And this is similar to what the Secretary of Education is doing, as she misinterprets why universities have become progressive. On the other hand, USC Admissions boasts that their labs have published many peer-reviewed, unbiased articles, effectively eliminating potential bias in their research. My resource states, despite educators' proclamations on behalf of democratic social reform, their support and ambivalence towards scientific racism allows schools to be used to support white supremacy for decades to come. Scientific racism in modern day has slowly become obsolete under peer-review scrutiny, and the understanding that race is a social phenomenon. However, some still use past ideals to make sense of current events. The Secretary of Education posits that American education could be the greatest, but because of political ideologies, it cannot flourish. She interprets higher education's willingness to breach heavier topics, such as race, class, and gender, as something that is a byproduct of leftist indoctrination. USC Admissions, representing a prestigious university, still grows and displays its educational strengths, while maintaining lucidity on matters that involve social identities, namely race in this argument. It is a testament to how great education is, not how great it can be. That is exactly what the Secretary of Education neglects to see. The results of racial stratification and school segregation in the suburbs, evidence from Los Angeles County by Jared N. Shaner, reveal that segregation is still seen despite it being written out of policy, and thus USC Admissions and Linda McMahon should keep their eye on the situation with white families sending their kids outside of their school districts, acknowledging the information dissonance that comes with what district they live in and which school they go to. Increased diversity did not change the prejudices of those who originally lived within suburban communities, and due to white families outsourcing education or sending their children away, artificial segregation was created. People on the side of privilege, like Linda McMahon, tend to look away from phenomena such as these because they believe that racism is simply rooted in policy and can thus be uprooted with the clipping of its weeds in the annals of law books. Regardless, racism comes with inequality, which means that there is a disparity between how one race and another is treated. People do not ask for permission to be racist. So naturally, the removal of Jim Crow does not remove the fact that communities of people of color have always been underserved. Linda McMahon must understand that as long as there is a resource difference between two communities, an employer, or an admissions officer of USC in this case, should take individual circumstances into account. After all, USC claims that it comes at its admissions and applicants holistically. Recruitment redlining by public research universities in the Los Angeles and Dallas metropolitan areas by Karina G. Salazar shows recruiters' blatant favoritism of white communities and hand in creating a larger gap in college opportunities. It's imperative that all schools, including USC, have DEI initiatives that address the recruiters who are avoiding diverse schools. Unless the Secretary of Education personally steps up to balance the gap at the high school level, she must not demonize affirmative action, as it is a necessary action. With the removal of affirmative action via the June 2023 Supreme Court ruling, many believe that merit-based admissions have returned. However, a large part of one's merit comes from the resources they were given to build said merit. And as evidenced by the paper, because of one's racial background, those who can give opportunities cast them to the wayside. This paper shares that while schools in white and middle-class communities take up a paltry 20% of all of Los Angeles' public schools, over half, 1 in 2 of them, were visited by recruiters, while less than 1 in 3 schools in POC communities received the same care. The Secretary should see these numbers as a sign that we cannot assume merit on paper to represent the applicant. This too is why USC Admissions emphasizes looking at applications as a whole. If one of the top universities of the nation finds importance in attempting to address inherent disadvantages, then the Department of Education should not willfully neglect the presence of these disparities. USC has been reported to have incidents related to racism against students and staff, which is hardly conducive to a proper learning environment. Thus, to protect the sanctity of education, which should be the Secretary's main goal, USC possesses a Race and Equity Center. Through their efforts, other schools have been able to attend workshops to address racism in their own institutions, despite the crackdowns on DEI offices and initiatives. It is in this way that USC Admissions has taken the topic of racism in education and shows that this university takes steps to accommodate every student and understand each potential limiter that comes as a product of racism. Education comes with meeting each student's learning needs halfway, and proclaiming DEI to be an unfair advantage is only admitting that one group has had an advantage over another in the first place. Linda McMahon consistently refuses to define equity properly, and in doing so, ignores student needs. This runs concurrently with the Department of Education's main statement upon inception: to promote improvements in the quality and usefulness of education through federally supported research, evaluation, and sharing of information. However, Linda McMahon and the U.S. President are working to fight against DEI by restricting schools and placing legal bars on any universities that still have a diversity office. Here, she is standing in front of members of the press, and she explains in her own words what will happen to universities that do not follow the new laws in place.
Well, certainly the President has been very clear, and the Department of Education has taken measures to make sure that as schools are developing, their policies, or if they have open DEI offices, they're closed, or DEI regulations and rules are stripped, from their programs, and so that will continue.
USC Admissions advertises USC as a campus that allows for and encourages demonstrations that protest racism in Los Angeles, and by extension, the globe. Its students are opinionated and strong adults who are not in need of the policing the Department of Education claims they require. Since the beginning of Linda McMahon's term as Secretary of Education, she has urged that education should be in the hands of parents, and yet she extends this to campuses that offer higher education. At college age, many can structure their own opinions and are not in need of an external force to tell them what is right or wrong, which runs concurrent to the Secretary's belief that the learning of race theory or advocating for racial justice is a byproduct of brainwashing. It cannot be stated enough that USC, despite its approval of protests and initiatives to understand how race affects one's prospects, is still a university that many students look up to and has massive credibility. As a private university, USC focuses on the people and not the government, so accepting all peoples is naturally a part of its mission. USC Admissions states that each student accepted is a student whose background is highly considered. Under current regulations, however, universities must legally turn a blind eye to potential adversities that come with being a person of color. Thus, USC Admissions cannot fully commit to this bit of their mission. Education is the maker of the future workforce, and if students fall through the cracks formed by the hammer of racism and ignorance of their struggles, then we will only continue to see a white-dominated workforce that does not allow for any diversity, which has proven to advance any organization as multiple perspectives bring multiple solutions to any problem. An institution like USC would not hold on to its DEI office or its race and equity office for no apparent reason. It is because initiatives like these are necessary to eradicate racism in education. USC Admissions promotes policies that increase racial equality and representation. The university, rated in the top 30 of schools in the nation, represents the city it's located in, which is Los Angeles. Los Angeles has one of the most diverse populations among U.S. cities, so naturally, institutions of higher education within it are interested in developments on racism. By extension, Los Angeles represents the United States as a whole, which is what the Secretary of Education claims to be working for. Ignoring the people on countless campuses that decide to push for DEI or try to circumvent DEI restrictions despite legal repercussions is simply not fulfilling her stated mission, which is to eliminate unnecessary bureaucracy so that our colleges, K-12 schools, students, and teachers can innovate and thrive. No one can thrive under regulations that erase the struggles of an entire group of people, especially when the regulations constrict the very thing that uplifts our minds. The USC Admissions Office has shown itself to place emphasis on racism in education as an admissions office based in Los Angeles, and its commitment to accepting students based on merit, but with equity, should demonstrate to the current Secretary of Education that her opinions on race theory, affirmative action, and DEI are flawed. Los Angeles has shown itself to be one of the most economically booming and opportunity-rich cities of the United States, and furthermore, it is also one of the most diverse. USC is of a similar nature. It is one of the many impressive schools of America. It has the experience and responsibility to cater to each student's needs and recognize how racial bias skews the accomplishments we see on paper. Its holistic admissions process exhibits that looking at each application beyond test scores leads to recruiting students of a higher caliber. This shows USC Admissions' unique position in the realm of racism in education and how it navigates it via acknowledging each issue instead of casting them under the rug. It is for these aforementioned reasons that the Department of Education Secretary should rescind her remarks on the bias, quote-unquote, introduced by DEI and affirmative action, and rather try to build an equitable education system that does not allow for any students to fall through the cracks simply because they were evaluated based on a couple of answers on a paper. By listening to institutions like USC Admissions and following their mission statements, then tweaking one's own to align with theirs, is a surefire way to create a Department of Education that does not restrict the growth of the United States education system.